Welcome back to a pretty moody editing tutorial this time, guys. So as you can see, if we come down, a lot of shadows, a lot of fade, a lot of greens, and it's pretty cool with those blues. And if you guys really like this style, I'll be putting all of his links down in the description so you guys can go give him a follow down there. And we're going to be working with this image right here. So he sent this into us and we're going to be trying to recreate its edit. So if you guys really like this style, then I definitely recommend checking out his presets, all the presets he offers you guys. So you can come over here and check them all out, see what he's offering you guys. And yeah, let's get into Lightroom. Okay, here's our raw file. As you can see, they're not the exact same photo, but pretty darn close. He sort of changes position there and the clouds slightly change. So first thing we'll do, take down the exposure. Because if you look at the histogram, you can see it's getting pretty blown out. And if you want to see exactly the parts getting blown out, you can tick that little box there and it will show you. So we'll just bring that down. Right, so I think the first thing I might do is just add in some contrast with the S-curves. We don't really need it. You'd think the contrast looks pretty good, but we want to add in a pretty strong fade across the shadows and almost into the midtones. So we're going to need quite a bit of extra contrast for that, because if we do this fade, then we lose a lot of contrast, and we want a strong fade throughout it. So I'm just going to do an S-curve in the red, green, and blue channels. Alright, so that's the S-curves done. As you can see, put in a really strong fade into those blacks there. And you got to bring down the shadow point to keep that contrast there. And when you do the S-curve, you just whack in the S-curve and then you see there's too much blue in the highlights. But really it's just that we've taken out too much red. That blue's got a greenish tint to it. So there's too much blue and green in the highlights. And then so you shift it up and you just sort of want this about the same color as you did before you did the curves, unless you're going for a color style. And I'm going for a bit more of a bluish look. It's gone a little more purple, but we'll change that. So you don't have to be too fussy. You do an S-curve and then you can shift it a little towards the style you want. So I'm happy with this, and that gives me the contrast to do a fade, because if we did the fade without the S-curves, it will look very flat. And then you can add it in contrast here, but what that's doing is actually bringing out detail. Doing contrast up here and in the curves is different. I think I've explained it in other videos. But if we bring up the blacks here, it doesn't actually add a fade. It's bringing out the detail in those darker areas. Okay, so we'll move on. I think our exposure is pretty good. Actually, you can see we're way more brighter in this image still. We've already brought down our exposure, but we will really bring down our highlights. Shadows, we need a bit more shadows. And then I'll probably bring up the blacks, maybe. I'll bring them back up. The white, so we're looking very bright if you look in areas like this. Because it's kind of a moody look. So we don't want real bright, vibrant whites. Take down some blacks. in here, there's a bit of a softness to the image. We're looking very harsh, and I reckon this is achieved with some clarity coming down. Just do a little bit, and the dehaze gives that nice soft look. As you can see, it adds a bit of atmosphere to the image. We'll just do a little bit, and then we'll add in some more with some filters later. Right, so I might just jump straight to split toning, just because I think adding some blues into the shadows will really help get the colors we want. So we definitely want blues in the highlights and shadows. As you can see, if you can pick out the blues in there, and then you might even want to change the hues. We'll change the purple hues to more of a blue. And the blue's a little more towards a teal. So you can notice that by looking there. They're a bit more teal. Right, split toning. We're going to be adding a nice blue to the highlights. This will probably have to be desaturated. Take down the blues. I'm going to take out the purples as well. And then I'll add some more blues into the shadows. And we start to get the same colors. Right. Sort of want to add a bit of a vignette. You can tell it's much darker down the bottom here, a bit darker on the sides there. And it's sometimes a good idea to do that first, because a vignette can kind of affect your colors sometimes. We will feather this out so you can see what that's doing. And if we bring up the highlights, it means the vignette's going to leave highlights alone. So only affect the darker areas, make the darker areas a bit more darker. But as you can see, it leaves the highlights alone. And while we're here, we'll add in some grain. So you can see bits of grain up there. I've got a 5K monitor, so I can see that now. Don't know if you guys can spot it on YouTube. There's a bit of grain in there. Make it bigger. Right. We will come back up to colors maybe. Oh, profile corrections. We'll do profile corrections. As you can see, that really gets rid of... I wasn't really happy with how this was working. I thought this could have been working better. But we should have done profile corrections earlier. And that's really helping. Right. So we'll carry on. So this was taken on 7200. Right, colors. So we've got a bit of greens and yellows down there. So pretty much just affecting the guy's jacket. yellows. I think our greens are looking really warm, and yellows affect the greens a lot. So thinking do something like that. There's not much magenta going on. Saturation. Take it down a tad. Luminance, so the brightness. Might try to make them pop just a little by adding a little. Yellows can maybe stay there. Just deepen the greens a bit. And I think we can add some brightness to our blues, which is going to affect most of the image as well. Yeah, it looks alright. Okay, so we want to add in some atmosphere to the image. So you can see there's this nice haze to some of the areas of the image. So along here and up there. And it just gives a real softness and just a real appealing haze and atmosphere to the image. So I'll do that by grabbing a filter. We want to be affecting the inside. And we want to bring up the exposure. And some dehaze. So this is going to give us this nice hazy look. Probably leave exposure quite far down. Bit more haze. Reducing the clarity can also do that. Right, so I'll do another one up on this side. Just a subtle amount. It just gives a nice amount of, maybe you'd call it atmosphere or something. We'll just check what our sharpening's doing, if we did any. We'll bring that up. And we can add in a bit more. I think we're looking pretty good. Maybe take out the luminance of all those greens and yellows. Right, looking pretty good. Might check saturation. Oh well, I think that looks alright down there. Right, is that before and after? Maybe a touch more shadows. I feel like it's a little darker. Or blacks maybe. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Looking pretty good before, after. It's made it much more moody, added a bit of atmosphere in there. Nice cool blues with a fade. Looks good. So, we'll just leave it there, I think, guys. Comment down below what you think of this. Who you guys want to see, what you guys want to see. And yeah, you can go give them a follow down in the description. I'll put all of his links down there. I'll put my links down there as well. So, go give me a follow on Instagram as well, and I'll be much more active over there pretty soon. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I will catch you in the next one. I'll just try to add more blues to that area. But yeah, sweet, catch you in the next one.